most important part of their job is to help people grow. But now how do we do it? How do we help people grow? A number of years ago, I went to a Chinese restaurant. And at the end of the meal, they give fortune cookies. And I don't know about you, but I believe in fortune cookies. I'm very careful to pick out the right one. Well, this day I picked out one and looked at my fortune. And it said, you have the talent to recognize the talent in others. And that's it. That's the magic in my life. I've been to Japan 77 times. And I think everybody, every great genius in the field of manufacturing management, I had the privilege to meet. And I ended up publishing maybe 80% of their books. I had a magical phrase. I would say to them, could I publish your book in English if I was in Japan? And in America, I would say, can I publish your book? I went to Dr. Deming and I said, Dr. Deming, can I publish your book? And Deming said, Norman, I don't write books. Well, I was so foolish and kick myself now because all I had to do to say to Dr. Deming, I'll write it for you. 5 years later, someone comes along, takes his course, and writes his book. In December, I led a study mission with Bob Miller. It was a Shingo Prize study mission, and it was marvelous. Marvelous for me because I continue to find these great geniuses in Japan. On this trip, I came back with one theme, and the theme was self-directed autonomous people. A number of places we went, we walked out of these factories, from these groups of people with that phrase. What we want is self-directed autonomous people. We want people that are growing. We want people that become artisans, that become artists in their specific field, their specific talent. The problem with us in America is that we listen to Frederick Taylor and Henry Ford. It might have been good 120 years ago, but it's surely not good today. They developed a production system and put people on the line to do repetitive tasks, the same thing over and over and over again. Well, sure, back in the late 1800s or the early 1900s, a lot of Americans going to work were immigrants. They couldn't even read and write English, and they were very happy to take a job and get paid. And Henry Ford paid them very well. In fact, Henry Ford doubled everybody's wage. And the system was very productive and made Ford very rich and made many other companies like General Motors very, very rich. But now it's 100 years later. We can't go along with that same concept of having people doing the same thing over and over again and compete in the world. Because China can do that. But China can do it for 50 cents an hour, and we have to pay, what, close to $10 and more per hour. We can't compete with that. We can't compete with highly skilled people. And how are we going to get there? It's funny, I took a survey of the travelers. There was 21 managers who went to Japan with me, and I asked them to rate what is the main role of a manager. I wanted them to rank this, and I asked them things like, what's the most important thing for you to do to improve the company's profit, to get higher quality, to improve the process, to improve productivity? And it's funny because they came back and said their most important job is growing people. Now, I've asked 100 people that same question, and every time I ask them, I come back with the majority, the plurality of managers saying their most important job is to grow people. But what do they do to grow people? I'll give you one example. I was introduced to a company called Kokoyu. Kokoyu makes these notebooks. They're probably the biggest notebook maker in Japan. And what's unusual about this notebook, I don't know if you can see it, but this notebook has tiny little dots. Tiny little dots. By putting those little dots on, you could take a sheet of paper and look at it as if it's a typewriter or a computer, which means you can indent now on the piece of paper. And this is great for students and people that want to organize their notes properly. Well, this company found this particular idea by one of their workers went and visited students at Tokyo University and tried to see how they were using their notebook. They give another example that I like very much. Well, this one woman went to a stationery store and she just stood there and she watched the clerk working with a customer. And the customer was looking for paper glue. You use it and you open the cap, it dries up quickly. That's one problem. Now there's another glue that we could use, and I don't know if I have it, I'm looking in my drawer for it, but it's Elmer's glue. You know, here it is. We have Elmer's glue oil, and I don't know if you use this, but the problem with Elmer's glue is it's hard to control. It goes all over the place and it sticks on your hands and etc. Okay, so she comes back to her company, gets involved with a group of other people, group of other employees, other workers, and they start to talk about this problem that she discovered at the stationery store. And they brainstormed together, and they came up with a miraculous new product. And they call it the dot liner. And what the dot liner is, it looks like almost like Scotch tape, and you apply it this way. I don't know if you can see this, but these are little dots. What this is like Scotch tape, but when I press it down, it breaks the little bubbles, and the little bubbles of glue come onto the paper, but I could make it an exact straight line. It doesn't dry up, and it doesn't get all over my hand. Now, I love the concept of going to the customer and seeing what the problem is and trying to come up with some new innovative idea. For somebody to blame, we're trying to get to the root cause of the problem and solve it. In fact, when I went to Japan on the trip before, I was walking along a Toyota plant in Nagoya, Japan, and I saw a worker moving an engine along a hoist. And he did something which caused the engine to come down and crash. So the engine was about, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 feet higher than he was, and it crashed down about 10 feet and smashed, and the oil poured all over the floor. Now, what was unusual about this is their supervisor was there, but the supervisor didn't criticize him, didn't blame him. All the super said, let's review what happened so it won't happen again. That's what Jidoka does. We're not looking to blame anyone, and we recognize with Jidoka that people make mistakes and people can learn from their mistakes.